Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. It's a little bit different. Usually, I interview immigration lawyers and people in the field, but I got the chance to speak with a great person, Steve Schwartz. He's an expert and professional at preparing for the LSAT. And so I had seen him interview one of my colleagues, Tamina Watson. I'd interviewed her myself. And he did such a good job that we connected. And I thought, it's an interesting thing to talk about his background and where things are going, because most of my audience is immigration attorneys. And they've been through this process, but a lot of things have changed. So I just wanted to jump in there to see what are people going through, going from the undergraduate process to law school and their mindset there and even in law school. But before you start that, Steve, why don't you tell us more about your background and how you got to where you are?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be with you today. So I've been coaching the LSAT for over 10 years now. I started back when I was considering law school myself. So I took the LSAT then for that reason, because of course, most people don't really do this for fun. And I'd gone to Ivy League undergrad. Then I took the LSAT practice and got a 152, which is around the median score, around the average. It's not really going to get you into a top 14 law school. So I was pretty discouraged. Yeah. But I kind of ended up using that discouragement, that frustration as fuel. And I ended up doing every single LSAT released up to that point and spent over a year hammering away at this exam until I finally got a 175 on test day. Nice. And once I did, I was like, you know what? I really like this exam after all, because it's like kind of funny, when you don't like something when you're bad at it, but once you do become good at it, then it kind of becomes fun. So I started helping out friends with their LSAT prep and I started tutoring it. And I had tutored other things in the past as well, like the SAT and academic high school subjects. And so I found that I really loved teaching the LSAT, and I built a website around it called the LSAT blog, where I started sharing free information, and it kind of just snowballed from there. And then more recently, I've created the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel and podcast, where I'm having discussions like what we're doing right now, as well as just kind of doing Q&A sessions and teaching lessons on there. And I really love it. It's a lot of fun.
What year did you take the LSAT?
I took it back in 2005.
2005. So I think we were the same boat, actually, same year. Okay.
Oh, really? No kidding.
Yeah. Because I started law school in 2006. I probably took it the year beforehand. Awesome. And what part of the country are you in?
I'm in New York.
Okay. So, yeah, I actually kind of enjoyed doing the LSAT. It was kind of fun for me. Just the LSAT itself, studying for it was kind of fun. I'm probably a sick person or something, but the games was interesting. Learning how to do the games was really key and stuff. One thing I messed up on is the games portion was the third part, and for some reason I flipped the pages too much. And so I started for my question 1 was actually question number 6. And I did that and I ended. I'm like, I'm missing some questions and answers. And I realized it was wrong. So I had to erase. You know how erasers on a Scantron are. So I'm guessing I got wiped out. I got to be frank, I got a 161, which was top 82% or 83% that year, something like that. So it got me, a couple scholarships and some between 50. Actually, I got Hastings or some of these schools at the time were in the top 30 or 40 or something like that. But I didn't feel like giving the test again. I was like, you know what? I didn't want to leave LA. So I went to Loyola. It's a good school. It was local. So I just went there.
Well, that's great, man. Yeah. Miss Bubbling's crazy, but it sounds like you did all right in the end anyway.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not going to kill myself over it. I mean, maybe I should have. I remember when I was studying for the LSAT, I studied for at 2 months to prep for that test masters or whatever it was I was using. I studied for a month and I was doing decent. And then I just stopped studying after that. And my work ethic before law school was horrible. The law school really taught me how to work hard. I didn't have that. Studying for the bar taught me how to work hard. Before that, I was just kind of a lazy student. I could get away with things just from my basic IQ level. I could get away with above average, but I couldn't reach the goals I wanted to because I wasn't ready to put the effort into it. But that was something that law school changed. It beat it into me. Why did you not decide to go into law school? What switched to not want to pursue that path?
Like, I guess a couple of things. I started writing a law school personal statement, and it ended up being all about why I didn't want to go to law school, kind of in a kind of circumspect way, I guess. I ended up writing all about how I was kind of jaded with international law and the United Nations. And so for that reason, I want to do something else like criminal law maybe, but it was like 80% why I don't like this one thing and then 20% this other thing. And it kind of seemed, I showed to my brother and he was like, it sounds like you don't really want to go to law school. And so I thought about it and I was like, maybe not. And at the same time, I loved teaching the LSAT, and I kind of really found my calling, really found my niche in the LSAT prep. It's a much more niche subject than like the SAT or high school academics. And so I quickly found people who wanted my services and found what I had to say valuable. And back in 2005, 2008, the internet was a very different place. There was very little out there about such a niche topic as the LSAT. And so I published a blog post about it people would find it in Google. They'd find me online pretty quickly. And so I started building momentum really fast. And so once I saw this thing had legs, I was like, you know what, let me just keep doing this for a while and see how it goes.
So, yeah, I was going to say, like, it's kind of a scary thing to jump ship on the safe law degree, but is the fact that you got clients quickly is what helped make it easy to do the transition?
Yeah, I would say that definitely helped. And like I said, I had tutored other stuff before. Throughout college, I was posting flyers all over New York City about like test prep for the SAT. Mm-hmm. I used to post on Craigslist for it as well. And so I kind of knew how to market a bit. But then once I built my own site, my own platform, then I kind of just really snowballed from there. Like I said, posting on message boards and forums and Facebook and all that. Marketing changes over time, but there are certain essential themes I think that remain constant.
How do you do do you train one-on-one, or do you have a team, or how does that work?
So I don't have a team. It's all me. I'm the only instructor, the only teacher, typically teaching one-on-one, at least historically, but over time, my site has grown to be more than just the one-on-one. I now have test prep books that students can get, study guides, cheat sheets, explanations. I also have video courses for each section of the LSAT, as well as a video course focused on getting ready for test day. I also do a lot with webinars and things like that. I'm also actually starting to do like in-person meetups with small groups. And so there's always new things to experiment with. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I'll talk offline about some technical stuff about where you upload your videos and stuff. We're kind of doing the same thing with where's my toolbox and your prep, but it's just different parts of it. So it's good to discuss that stuff. So you've been doing this for a lot of years now. Is this the only thing you do? I mean, has it gone just LSAT, or do you still do SATs and stuff?
No, I stopped doing the SAT stuff pretty quickly. Like right after I went full-time with the LSAT after college, I kind of dropped all the other subjects very fast because the LSAT was much more interesting than the other stuff. I think that the LSAT has a level of complexity and nuance and detail and depth that you really don't find in any of the other exams. Even the GMAT, the GRE, the MCAT, the LSAT's a whole nother beast. You can't memorize it. You can't cram for it. You haven't learned anything like it in school up to that point. And so I think that kind of caught my interest. And again, it's something that very few people can do. And so once you can do it, you're automatically in demand for it.
So, I took a test course, and it definitely does help, especially if I got a one-on-one person. I would have been helping this group of people and getting distractions and stuff. Your service probably would have been better. But do you find some people that are not teachable, or you could always help people at least gain some points no matter what?
I think it's a mix. You can always help people to some extent, but I will admit that there are honestly some people who may just not have what it takes. And it could be a combination of not having the prior training or rigorous way of thinking about things.
Yeah.
But also, there are so many students who don't have the time. People, especially after college, once they're working, once they have families, it's really hard to put in the time, but you've got to put in the time. And people underestimate just how difficult this is. People typically have a 2-month timeline or a 3-month timeline. And also things were way less competitive way back when, right? Like even back in 2005, back when you were studying and I was studying, it wasn't the same as it is now. Now there's all these boutique online resources. The exam's gotten more difficult over time. And so you've got to be willing to invest the time since your competition is as well. Your fellow law applicants are as well. You got to put in at least, I'd say 15, 20 hours a week on average.
Yeah, that's what you got to do to succeed. I didn't realize that until I became a lawyer, that those kind of hours you do if you really want to push things. Like we've talked about this, but I don't work 15 or 16 hours on case per se, but I do that development of my firm. I'm not studying, and eventually adds up to a lot. Now, what have been the changes since 2005 till now in the LSAT?
Well, I think the exam format itself hasn't changed too much over time. You still got the logic games. You've still got the logical reasoning and reading comprehension. There have been a couple small changes. One of them is that the logic games went from being all crammed onto one page to having a 2-page layout, so you got a bit more space. But now the biggest change is this year, actually. It's kind of like a timing that we're having this discussion. But the LSAT's finally going digital. All the other big exams are digital. The GMAT is, the GRE is, the MCAT is, I think. And now the LSAT finally, as you mentioned in our previous discussion, legal bureaucracy is slow to adopt technology, right?
Yeah.
And so LSAC has been as well. They've been kind of studying and puttering around this idea of computerizing it for years. But finally, this year, starting in July, they're going to administer it on a tablet. So that's the big change coming this year. They're going to, and in July, they're going to give half of test takers the digital format on the tablet. They'll give the other half paper and pencil just to kind of measure how each group does. But then the plan is that, assuming nothing surprising happens, starting in September, everyone's going to be taking it on a tablet going forward.
So do they give you a tablet when you go there?
Yeah, so they're going to have all the tablets preloaded. They come in there. They're going to be a Windows tablet, I believe. And a Microsoft Surface Go. They were talking about Windows, but it's going to be a Microsoft Surface Go tablet. So not an iPad, not a Samsung. And so I'm starting to recommend that test takers get themselves a tablet if they want to study like it's going to be game day. You know, it doesn't have to be that one in particular. You could use an iPad or something. You could even study on your phone a little bit if the screen's big enough. But you got to practice like it's going to be on the test day. So that's what I recommend.
Interesting. So did they increase the price for this at all to buy these things, or how's the pricing on LSATs going?
So the pricing is kind of increased significantly each year, much more than inflation. It's $190 to register for the LSAT right now. And most people take it at least 2 or 3 times now because law schools no longer average multiple LSAT scores. So if you get a 150, then a 170, they're going to take it as if you got a 170 only. So big incentives to retake it, especially if you think you can do better next time.
Interesting. Okay, so you talked about the GMAT or GRE, those other tests coming in. How widespread is that? And let's just jump into that topic.
Yeah, so the big interesting thing now as well on the admission side is that a lot of law schools have started accepting applicants with GRE scores in place of LSAT scores. The LSAT's been the only game in town for like all of history since 1948.
Yeah.
And it has a strong demonstrated correlation with first-year law school grades. And you want that because you don't want people going to law school who are then going to flunk out after fall semester 1L or not be able to pass the bar because you're making a big investment in your education. You know, people walk away with hundreds of thousands in debt between the tuition and the opportunity cost and the living expenses and all that. So you really want to know that you're going to be able to do it. And the GRE, in my opinion, has not demonstrated the same level of correlation with 1L grades. But law schools want those applicants because there's been a recent decline in the number of people looking to go to law school. But law schools still have all their overhead. They still have all their administrators with six-figure salaries. And so they've got to meet their expenses. And the way to do that is to have more people coming in the door all the time.
Yeah, I think that LSAT really is a good test. I mean, I remember people are frustrated and they get angry because this testing is difficult, you get low grades. But it really does gauge you really well if this is the kind of field you should be going in, at least for getting law school grades and stuff like that. And I guess thinking like a lawyer. So how widespread is it? Do a lot of this? I think a lot of the top tier schools has been switch already, right?
Yeah. So it started with some of the lower tier schools, like University of Arizona was a big one. But then Harvard, a couple of years back, I think it was 2017, Harvard said they were going to take it. And if Harvard says they're going to do something, then everyone else feels comfortable doing it too. So quickly after that, a lot of the T14 follows suit, top 14 law schools followed suit. But I don't want to overstate the situation with the GRE because a lot of schools have started taking it, but they're not necessarily taking that many applicants who have the GRE scores. The top schools, they're usually using it to maybe attract some people with STEM backgrounds who may not have otherwise been considering law school because the GRE, of course, is more popular, more widely administered, used for a wide variety of degrees. And so if someone took it and maybe is considering law school, then they think about it, they're ready to go. They don't have to suddenly start studying for a whole other test altogether.
Yeah. And so do you help not only with LSAT, but other admission related stuff for law schools?
Yeah, I definitely advise people with the admission stuff. A lot of my free resources talk about different parts of the application. I'm not an admission consultant, though. My focus is on the LSAT, but I'll oftentimes help my students with their personal statements or questions about letters of rec and things of that nature.
Interesting. So what has anything changed in how admissions works since in the last 10, 15 years?
The biggest change I've seen is that the timeline's gotten longer. It used to be that you might want to make the last time you take the LSAT be December and then apply right afterwards. You wouldn't want to apply with a score from February for that cycle because it was starting to feel kind of late. But that's changed. Again, with the declining number of people applying, law schools have lengthened the timeline. So you take the LSAT in January, February, March, they'll still look at that score and still consider you for that cycle. So you could theoretically take it in February or March. There's an exam coming up on March 30th. You could take it then and then start law school 5 months later.
Awesome. Interesting. So how is this weighed now? Is the LSAT, how much they weigh that as part of your overall score change, or depends on the school, or how does that work now?
It's still largely the LSAT is the biggest component in the application process. So it's kind of like there's your LSAT score is the biggest thing. Then there's your undergraduate GPA. Then there's all those other so-called soft factors like personal statement, letters of rec, diversity statement, character and fitness, etc. But it's much more about the numbers.
Interesting. So you must keep busy. I mean, even with the declining people who are going to law school, it's a wide field probably. I mean, they have the big test masters and those kind of groups that do it. But I think people are probably still going towards individual attention, especially people, willing to pay for it, that they would prefer to go one-on-one. Is that right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are looking for the more specialized options because you have your Kaplans and Princeton reviewers that do every exam under the sun, but they're also they're not specializing, and they're oftentimes repurposing a lot of the same strategies from other exams to the LSAT reading comprehension in particular. And the internet's also changed a lot. Now, like someone like myself can get a pretty wide reach on the internet. As just in Kaplan and me both have to use the internet the same way. So Facebook algorithm treats everything the same. Twitter treats everything in the same. So it's kind of equal the playing field to some extent.
Awesome. Well, it's a very interesting conversation. If someone wanted to contact you, or someone's listening, or for a family friend, what are the best ways to get a hold of you?
So the best ways, a couple things. The LSAT blog, just Google it. Google LSAT blog, Steve Schwartz. You'll find me. You can email me, lsatunplugged@gmail.com. I'm also very active on YouTube and podcasting. So you can find my YouTube channel at youtube.com/LSAT blog. And you can find the LSAT Unplugged podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and pretty much everywhere else.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve, for coming on.
Thanks for having me, John. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.